viewers, and welcome to RTD's English News Edition. Here are our headlines. Just like the capital, the regions of the interior celebrated the festivities of Eid al-Fitr yesterday. And on the COVID-19 virus, Brazil is the second country with the most cases in the world. Thank you for being with us. Opening this edition with a press briefing by the Secretary General of the Ministry of Health on the profile of the situation of the COVID-19 epidemic for this Monday, May 25, 2020, 1,043 tests have been done, 198 positive cases of COVID-19 where there are still contact persons. 15 cases were recovered and 4 deaths, which are elderly people with comorbidity and disease in the last 3 days. These results are the accumulation of the last 3 days. The dynamics of the COVID-19 epidemic continues with a steady increase in positive cases. And we ask the population to pay special attention, he said, to elderly people with chronic diseases. Please continue to call 1517. Like the other regions, to the Jora region, the White City celebrated massively the feast of Eid al-Fitr in the festive joy, and the great gathering was held as usual in the courtyard of the Great Mosque of Jafar, located in the heart of the city of White and of the authorities of the region. The ulama took part in this great celebration. The preacher of the Eid al-Fitr was presided by Sheikh Hussein Burqad. This year, the feast of Eid al-Fitr celebrated with a particularity because of the health crisis of COVID-19 which is raging in the country. It was necessary to impose on the faithful the respect of barrier measures decreed to avoid the risk of propagation of the coronavirus pandemic. Hand washing, wearing masks, and respect of distancing are measures dictated for the faithful in front of the big door of the mosque, a work that has been successful thanks to the commitment of civil society and the gendarmerie, who have been mobilized to contribute to the reinforcement of the respect of the barrier measures. The prefect of the region, Hassan Dabele, said that he was pleased with the celebration of Eid festivals despite the fear of pandemic. The barrier measures were taken seriously, he said, by the faithful, and that is why the prefect of the region would like to thank first and foremost civil society and the gendarmerie for working together for the best respect of the barrier measures. And finally, Prefect Dabele wished all the people of the Tijara region of Murgating up to the President of the Republic and the First Lady and his best wishes. Like the Muslim world and the entire country, the Obok population celebrated Eid al-Fitr yesterday morning in an atmosphere of popular rejoicing. As usual, from 6 a.m. at sunrise, all the faithful of the town of Obok met to participate in the collective prayer of Eid organized at the place of June 27 in front of the residence of Leon Lagarde. As usual, the prefect of Obok, Abdul Malik Muhammad Buneta, and the president of the regional council, Muhammad Ismail, the deputy of the region, Kamil Humati, prayer alongside the faithful with a heart full of joy. This feast of Eid al-Fitr took place at a time when the risks of contamination are present, enforcing the closure of places of worship for almost 2 months, noting that all the conditions were met to allow the faithful to make the prayer while respecting the distance between the faithful and the wearing of masks to prevent the risk of contamination.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillah alladhi ja'ala al-Eid yawma al-Adha'i Musa yaqlalu fihi 'ala al-'abidina 'ahla al-Mina wa yulbisuhum fihi min ihsani jamil al-siyab wa yukrimuhum fihi bi ajli al-kasb.
In following the example of the Muslim world and the whole country, the Assajuk celebrated Eid al-Fitr yesterday morning in an atmosphere of popular joy. As usual, from 6 a.m. at sunrise, all the faithful of the city of Ali Sabih met to participate in the collective prayer of Eid organized at the large state Omni Sports in front of the middle school of the city in presence of the authorities of the region, the prefect Musa Mikane, and the president of the regional council, the deputy of the region, the deputy Ilm Mahabi Ais. Also, the Minister of Health Muhammad Warsmadidiye took part in the collective prayer of Eid, as well as the high religious dignitaries and high officials of the civil society of the region. Also, the Diqil region celebrated massively the feast of Eid al-Fitr in the festive joy, and the great gathering was held as usual in the courtyard. The ulama took part in this great celebration, and this year the feast of Eid al-Fitr is celebrated with a particularity because of the health crisis of the COVID-19 which is raging in the country. It was necessary to impose on the faithful the respect of the barrier measures decreed to avoid the risk of propagation of the coronavirus pandemic. Hand washing, wearing masks, and respect of distancing are measures dictated for the faithful in front of the as well a work that has been successful thanks to the commitment of the civil society and the gendarmerie, who have been mobilized to contribute to the reinforcement of the respect of the barrier measures.
مخبتين وصابرين. الله أكبر الله أكبر ما قرأوا القرآن وباتوا لربهم سجدا وقياما سائرين.
Following the example of the country, the region of Arta celebrated Eid al-Fitr on Sunday, May 24, early morning. The faithful dressed up to make the solemn prayer of the Eid al-Fitr on the sports field in the city center. As usual, the prefect of Arta and the president of the regional council prayed along the faithful with a heart full of joy. In Arta, the preaching of the Imam of the great mosque, Sheikh Gulait Muhammad Hassan, was devoted to forgiveness, solidarity, love of neighbor, and invocation on the protection of Allah against this global pandemic of coronavirus, which is in reality also in Djibouti, and wishing a speedy recovery to the sick patients of COVID-19. This feast of Eid al-Fitr took place at a time when the risks of contamination are present and forcing the closure of places of worship for almost 2 months, noting that all the conditions were met to allow the faithful to make the prayer while respecting the distance between the faithful and the wearing of the mask to prevent the risk of contamination.
وقتل وتدمير وظلم وتهجير والجواب أيها المسلمون يا من يقول شيء كن فيكون أن ترحم البلاد والعباد. اللهم الطف بنا فيما جرت به المقادر وارحمنا رحمة واسعة وارزقنا عافية الأبدان.
And taking advantage of the partial lifting of the lockdown measures, drug traffickers believed they had found an opportunity to replenish the Djiboutian market with their drugs. However, this was without relying on the vigilance and ground control of the judicial units of the gendarmerie. To this end, during the last days of the blessed month of Ramadan, the gendarmes of the Ali Sabih Brigade received an information that a large shipment of cannabis herb had been smuggled from Ethiopia. As a result, a massive operation was set up at several sensitive points in the region to intercept the courier in flagrant delicto. On 22 May 2020, at around 4 p.m., the trap closed on a trafficker in possession of 78 cups of cannabis herb weighing more than 20 kilograms hidden in plastic bags. And during this hearing, the alleged perpetrator admitted to being a henchman of a notorious wholesale traffickers. Wanted notices have been issued against them, and he has taken into custody and will be brought before the courts to answer for his actions. The High Command of the Gendarmerie undertakes to discipline any attempt to introduce narcotics into our territory. More than ever, it is more important than ever to protect the health of our fellow citizens from any harm. It is with deep regret that we announce the death of the late Hamid Mohammed in Turkey on May 21st at the age of 73. The late Mohammed Hamid retired from the post office where he spent his entire career as a senior executive, was known by his as well for his qualities, his wisdom, his generosity and his kindness. Football player in his youth, the deceased leaves behind him a widow with 7 children and 6 grandchildren. We extend our deepest condolences to all his family, including his daughter Muhammad Hamid MP and his relatives. We pray to the good God to welcome him in his eternal paradise. We also regret to announce the death of the late Ahmed Malko Ahmed, Afar writer and composer, who passed away yesterday in Djibouti Hospital, Peltier. He leaves behind a widow and 6 children. As a freedom and democracy fighter from his youth, Ahmed Malko Ahmed, a true playwright and a poet of Afar language, was known for his immense culture. On March 2003, he was a member of the organizing committee for the Symposium on the Language, author of the several theater scenes, composed of many well-known songs, author of many theater scenes. With him, we lose a huge library of the Afar language and culture. We send our deepest condolences to his children, including Abdullah Malko, his family and friends, and may Allah welcome him into his eternal paradise. Now moving on to the international news, Brazil has the second highest number of cases in the world. The new coronavirus continues its inexorable advance in Latin America, which has in turn become the epicenter of the pandemic, particularly in Brazil, the country with the second highest number of cases in the world after the United States. In the last 24 hours, 965 deaths have been recorded in the country, a figure that had been above 1,000 for several days. With a total of 347,398 infections, Brazil has now replaced Russia as the second most infected country in the world. The United States will announce a travel ban on travel from Brazil, which has become one of the countries most affected by the coronavirus pandemic worldwide. So far untouched, Gaza, a fierce coronavirus outbreak concern is gaining ground in the Gaza Strip as it celebrates the end of the unprecedented Ramadan. Mosques reopened on Friday. The confinement has begun, yet the unexplored territory has been the number of cases of coronavirus more than doubled in just a few days. On Saturday, the first death was recorded a 77-year-old woman. The return of residents is trend upward in being blamed, even though the closure of the borders with Israel and Egypt had worked perfectly. Then 35 new cases have been quarantined, and the authorities believe they are now in control of the situation. On Friday, a religious affairs minister justified the opening of the mosques by calling Gaza the safest place to celebrate Eid and gather for prayer. Life goes on almost as before in Gaza, only the grandmothers remain confined, too busy preparing the traditional cakes that accompany Eid al-Fitr, while the tradition continues in the homes. The animation back in the streets of Gaza as if to delay the fears that an epidemic could paralyze the already overburdened health system of the coastal enclave. And that's all for this news. Thank you for joining us on the radio television of Djibouti, and Eid Mubarak.